Morning, everybody. I see some people popping in early. I see some people I know. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Shirley. Great. We got a lot of people coming in. I am going to warn you. I think we're going to have an awful lot of participants. So, hopefully we can get to all the questions. We'll do our very best here. Hi, everybody. Wow. I see Barbara. People I know, some new people I don't know. Hey, Sherry. Just kind of looking through. Everybody's piling in. We've got about a minute to go here before we actually get the show on the road. Look at all the people coming in. I'm just looking at all our comments here. Fabulous. Thanks, Penny. That's such a nice thing to say. I appreciate it. All right. Yeah, over 100 people, Shirley. I know. It's gonna be crowded. All righty. Okay, guys, I think we are ready to roll. People are piling in here. Let me see if I can figure out how many people we've got. I know it's a lot. I'm looking to see if Mary Beth has joined us, one of our other educators. Okay, guys, good morning, good mid-morning, good lunch for all of you. And I'm sure most of you know who I am if you're on Facebook. My name's Patty Sliney. I'm a Handy Quilter National Educator. I live in the San Diego County, California area, not too far from the ocean. And I've been a Handy Quilter educator now for about a little over 3 years. I've been long arming since 2017. And most of you know that my specialty, my love, and my forte is ProStitcher. And you can see my machine over my shoulder here. I'm in my studio. So, and Roberta, thank you. That was very kind of you. I'm trying to catch some of the messages. I'm glad y'all are looking forward to this. This is going to be sort of getting started with ProStitcher Premium. And we're going to do an overview and kind of do a tab review. And hopefully I'll have some time to do a little demo on how to create an area and fit a design in it. And hopefully I can do a little edge-to-edge design, how to create an edge-to-edge design with cropping. So that's going to be kind of my goal. I will try to stop and answer some questions if I can. The challenge will be the fact that we have a huge number of people in the class. So I'm going to try to catch all your comments that I can, and I'll try to find logical stopping points. If you've got questions, post them over in the comments and I will try to get to them. Or if Mary Beth is on with me here, hopefully she can help, and I'll try to turn her mic on if I can figure out how to do that. And just so you know, I'm using a new streaming platform. It's called StreamYard. So I'm in the learning curve, and I know y'all can relate to that with ProStitcher. And the learning curve. This is the first time I've used this streaming service as opposed to something like Zoom or Teams. So my apologies in advance if I make a boo-boo. So let's go ahead and get started. And first thing I want to talk about is really literally getting started. You've got your machine and you've got ProStitcher installed. And so really the first thing that a lot of people ask is, how do I turn my system on? Which is a very basic but important question. So let me go ahead and share little PowerPoint I have that'll give you some steps on how to turn your system on and off correctly. So these are the steps. The first set here is how to turn your system on correctly. You want to plug in your power cords into your electrical source, which, by the way, should be a UPS, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So plug your power cords in. You always want your system unplugged from the electrical source when it's not in use. That's really important. Don't leave it plugged into a surge strip or even into a UPS when you're not using it. When you've shut down and you're done, pull the plugs from the UPS. You can keep your UPS or your surge strip plugged into the electrical outlet. That's not a problem. But just pull your system power cord or cords from the surge strip or the UPS. And again, I recommend a UPS. So once you've got your power cords plugged in, you'll want to turn on your main power toggle switch, which is located on the back of your machine. And it's a toggle switch. So you want to flip it to the I position, which means in. Electricity is going into your machine. Then you want to come around to the front of your machine and turn on the front power button. For some machines, that'll be on the left side of your machine, or for some older machines, it'll be under the right handlebar. And allow your machine to fully boot up. Give it a hot second to boot up. You'll hear it beep. Usually, most machines will beep, but make sure it's fully booted up. So I would say give it 10 to 15 seconds to do that. Then you can turn on your ProStitcher tablet by holding the power button down for about 5 seconds. Some tablets will have a power light, a blue power light. Some you'll see the splash screen pop on, and then you can take your finger off the power button. So to shut your system down, you're just going to reverse those steps. You're going to turn your ProStitcher tablet off by going to the File tab, Shut Down, Shut Down. And let me show you what that looks like. So you're going to go to File, Shut Down, Shut Down. That is a two-step shutdown. It actually does two things. It shuts your ProStitcher Premium software program down, but it also will then shut your tablet entirely down. So for those of you that have ProStitcher installed on your laptop to use in simulation, you want to use File, Shut Down, Exit to Windows. If you use File, Shut Down on your laptop, it's going to shut your laptop down. So once you have done that and you shut your ProStitcher tablet off, you'll want to turn your front power button off and then turn your main power toggle switch off in the back. And then, like I said, unplug your power cords. So that's how you turn your system on and off. That's the correct way. If you accidentally turn your system on in the wrong order, you may get an error message for ProStitcher. I just recommend shutting your tablet down, shutting your machine down, unplug your power cords from the electrical source for about 5 to 6 minutes. That will reset your system, and then you can turn it on in the correct order, and you shouldn't get an error message. UPS, I talked about having your machine plugged into a UPS. A UPS is an uninterruptible power supply, and they look kind of like this, various designs. This is just one I grabbed off the internet. And we have a really great article on Handy Quilter's website under their blog section. You can click on their little magnifying glass in the upper right corner to search for it, and then click the blog radio button and just type in UPS. And this article will come up for you, and it has this really nifty graph that will give you an idea of what size UPS to get for your specific system. It depends on what machine you have and if you have ProStitcher. So you want to add those numbers to it so you know you have enough wattage and volt amperage coverage to protect your machine. And a UPS, it's two things. It's a really super duper surge protector and line conditioner. So it protects not only from surges, but also protects from power dips, which can be just as damaging to computer boards as a surge can be. And it also has a backup battery that gives you several minutes of backup battery time to be able to shut your system down in the correct order, and then you can unplug it from the UPS. So, and it's there to protect your system while you're using it. It is not there to protect your system while you're not using it. So remember, when you shut down for the evening, you do need to unplug it. So that's the UPS, and I wanted to bring that up. So that's kind of our beginning. So I want to now try to dive into ProStitcher for you. So bear with me while I switch screens. Let's add this. All right. Hopefully y'all can see my screen. And can y'all see ProStitcher? Let me have one person comment and let me know that you can see my ProStitcher screen and a little picture of me. Anybody want to send a comment to me so I know y'all can see my ProStitcher screen? Yep. Thank you, Jean. Thanks, Jenny. Great. Okay. So let me minimize this so I can get to my ProStitcher screen. Okay. And we did have somebody ask about whether this is being recorded. Yes, this is being recorded. It will be on the ProStitcher Facebook page for a couple of weeks, and it will also be uploaded to our ProStitcher YouTube channel, and it'll be under the live section on the ProStitcher YouTube channel. It'll live there forever, so you'll be able to go back and watch this if you have to step out for any reason or you want to re-review the information. All righty, so let's talk about ProStitcher. We're going to do an overview, and I'm in simulation, so there'll be a few minor differences, and I'll try to cover those as we come across them. So let's just do kind of a quick overview of the screen and understand that ProStitcher Premium is set up just like any other Windows-based program. We have kind of a hierarchy of navigation, just like you do in any Windows-based program. You've got your tabs across the top. It's not really any different if you've used Microsoft Word. There's tabs across the top, and every tab has its own set of tools in the toolbar ribbon. And you can see as I click through the tabs, those tools change based on what tab I'm in. And then we have our left sidebar here that consists of two toolbars, one on the left, which is our quick access assignable tools, and then our workspace tools here. And then we have a right sidebar over here, and that will contain the tools specific for whatever particular tool you've selected here in the ribbon. And this will change. So this is interesting. Your left sidebar here is static. It never changes. If you look at the left sidebar, as I click through the tabs, notice that left sidebar never changes. But as I click through, you can see the right sidebar definitely changes. So that's our right sidebar. And then we've got some icons over here that I'm going to talk about. And then we've got a few tools here and functions here at the bottom of the screen that will help us with the work that we want to accomplish in ProStitcher. So let's talk a little bit about our assignable tools here. And there's sort of a standard default selection, but these here, there are 10 of them, are assignable. So you can change them if you find that you really want to have access to certain tools all the time, no matter what tab or tool you're using. You want that at your fingertips. You can reassign these. There's some I recommend that you don't get rid of. Obviously, undo and redo, baseline, based, and at least your horizontal channel lock. Those should stay on there. I would not reassign those. But if you do want to reassign them, you can do that by going to the Settings tab. That's our little gear icon tab here. And be on Display. And over here, you see this magic wand that says assign. When I click this button, this is how we will reassign these. Watch what happens to these 10 assignable buttons. They get big. And you can take your finger and scroll to get to the one maybe you want to reassign. Let's say I don't want grid. Let's say I want something else. I can click on it on the little arrow, and you'll get a flyout menu. And then you can pick whatever tool you want. Let's say I want multi-point. And then all I need to do is just click assign again, turn it off. And now my grid has become multi-point. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change that back to grid and turn assign on. So very simple. So that's our left sidebar. And then over here, that's our left sidebar, quick access, assignable tools. And they are really handy. So you can turn your baste on and off. You can turn your channel locks on and off wherever you are in the system. It's very nice. Now, there are 1, 2, 3. If you're on your tablet, there are these 4 workspace tools. Select, pan, zoom. X-form is grayed out. And anytime you see a tool that's grayed out, that just means you have not met the criteria in the program for that tool to be active. The reason that's not active is I don't have a design in the workspace. If I were to open a design, this tool would become active. Now on my laptop, I have a 5th button. It's called Simulate, and that allows me to select it. And then if I move my mouse over here, see how my crosshairs turn to an X, which represents crosshairs. If I hold my left mouse button down and move my mouse around, it allows me to move my crosshairs, just as though I had my hands on the handlebar of my machine and moving my machine head around on my quilt top. So that's how we can mimic being able to place our crosshairs or needle on our quilt top, because they're the same thing, wherever I want in my workspace. Only one of these can be turned on at any time. As you can see, I can only have one at a time. The default selection is select. That allows you to click on a design and select it, or click on the area and select it. Just a little tip. When I am at my machine and using ProStitcher, I like to hang out on Zoom. That way, if I accidentally, let me just open a design and show you what will happen. So if I'm on Zoom and I accidentally swipe my screen, that's all that happens. And then I can just go to my refresh button and get it back to normal size. If I'm on select and I accidentally swipe my screen, I can move the design. I could accidentally click on a tool. Yes, I can use undo, but I find it a little safer just to hang out on Zoom. That way, if I accidentally swipe the screen with my fingertip, it's sort of a no harm, no foul, and I can just click refresh and de-zoom and have everything brought back into my workspace. So let me just clear that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of these tools. We've talked about select. It allows you to select a design or your area. And I want you to notice here in the right sidebar, we've got 3 tabs here. We've got Workspace, which is blank because I have blank Workspace. If I were to put my design back on there, and I go to the Workspace tab, now it's telling me, oh, you've got a design. And it's selected. I know my design is selected because, number one, it's black in the Workspace, but also over here in the right sidebar, the Workspace is showing a green design. That says it's selected. So let's say I decide to add an area. Let me make my area. Let's make it like a little baby quilt. And I'm going to refresh it so you can see my area. Now, if I go to my Workspace tab, let's see. Let's go back to File, Design. It should show my design, and it's not being, this might be a little bug. It should show my design and my area, and why it's not, I don't know. That's very interesting. So let me go ahead. Let me see what happens if I fill it. Okay, there it is. Every once in a while, and I think I'm using the new PS Connect Beta 847, so that could be a little bug that I will be reporting to the developers, because it should show the area. And if I click on area, I've selected my area, and you know it because it's turned that sort of teal blue, and you can see my design is grayed out. If I click on my design, now my area goes back to pink, and my design is black, which indicates it's selected. So this little right sidebar workspace tab is really handy if you're trying to select something. It allows you to go back and forth very nicely. Okay, so that's select. And then, of course, pan. You can use the pan tool to move what you see on the workspace. It just moves your view. See? It's not moving the design. It's just, if you can see my slider bars are moving, I'm holding, and you would do this by putting your finger on the screen and dragging it. It just allows you to move your view. You can do the same thing if you have your slider bars turned on in your settings tab. And see here, what do I have turned on in my view tab? Excuse me. I have my scroll bars turned on. If I have my scroll bars turned off, pan is helpful because then you can move it. But I like my scroll bars turned on, so I tend not to use pan. I'll just use my scroll bars. They do the same thing. Okay, so back to our workspace, our 4 workspace buttons. Zoom is exactly what it sounds like. You can draw a marquee box around part of the design by putting your left finger down and dragging a box diagonally to zoom in. And we also have our zoom slider bar here, so I can zoom out, or I can use refresh and refresh back. Refresh will bring everything that you have on your workspace into view, which would be your crosshairs, all of your designs, and your area if you have those all in. So that's how refresh works. Xform, you can see now that my Xform button is active because I've met the criteria for that tool to be active. I have a design on the screen. So if I click Xform, it will allow me to manually adjust and rotate a design. Sorry about that. Norton's being very busy. I can resize. I can make it wider. Undo that. Undo that. I can also rotate the design. And you see when I float my mouse over, it's nice. You won't get that on your tablet so much with your finger. But if you're practicing on your laptop in simulation, you get a couple of really nice things. You'll get an icon change. You can see it turns into a rotate arrow, turns into a one-way or a two-way arrow. You can see we get these nice little tips. Also, sometimes you'll get a tooltip pop up. If you float over the tool, you can see it says refresh. So it's really nice, and I do encourage you to always install ProStitcher on your PC laptop. We'll talk about that. So you can practice with your feet up on the ottoman, your favorite beverage, your laptop in your lap. So this you just hold down and rotate, and it will rotate the design for you if you so desire. And again, we talked about simulate. That turns my left mouse button and left click and hold, and it allows me to move my crosshairs wherever I want to move them. Okay, so we've talked about that. And then one of the other things I want to cover over here in our quick access buttons, you've seen me use it. Undo and redo. Undo will undo and edit change. You saw me use it when I was in Xform and I rotated the design and I decided, nope, I don't want that. I just clicked undo. and it will undo. It'll just keep going back and undoing each edit change that you've made. You can see as I click through, redo will undo an undo. So I went back maybe one step further than I wanted. Now I don't have my repeats. So I can say, oh, I don't want that. So I'm going to redo it to get all my repeats back. So redo undoes your last undo. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to get out of Xform by clicking on one of my workspace tools. Remember, only one of these 4 can be on at a time, and in simulation, 1 of 5. Okay, and we've talked a little bit about the right sidebar. I'm going to kind of pop out of this and pop back in and see if we have any questions. This is kind of a good time for me to see if we have any questions. Okay, so Tanya asks, I'm running PS Connect version 847. And let me see if we have any other questions. We talked about watching it later. It's going to be recorded. We've talked about that. They need to be selected. Jima, Lou, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Look and see if there's any. Is the UPS used in addition to a power strip? All a power strip is an extension cord with a bunch of power outlets. I think, Janet, you mean a surge strip. You want to use one or the other, and a UPS is far superior to a surge protector or a surge strip. It'll have more surge protection. Most UPSs also have insurance. I think mine has like $500,000 damage. So if I'm using my machine and we have a surge and somehow it fries my UPS and fries my system, I have $500 insurance coverage. So I highly recommend. I have all of my sensitive computer things on UPSs. This is not the only thing I have on a UPS. I have my very expensive sewing and embroidery machine. I have my laptop in it. Okay, so I think we've answered all the questions. Let me see. What is the advantage of using Connect? The PS Connect 847 beta version, Kelly, is very stable. It's as stable as the ProStitcher 537 premium version of ProStitcher. It's a stable. You get the benefit. You get a few more designs. That's one thing. There's an extra folder of designs. Iris, Nodalace designs are in there. And you have the ability to connect to ProStitcher.com, purchase designs, load designs, update your software directly online. You don't have to use a flash drive. Quick access icons. There's a question here Tammy has. There are 10. There's 10 of them on the side here. If you look below design and you start counting at the undo arrow and count down, there's 10 of them. What is the difference between area and workspace? The workspace is the white section you see here on the screen. It will represent your quilting space, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And area is you plotting an area to tell ProStitcher where you want the design to stitch out. So your workspace that I'm talking about, that's this whole white area. The area that I created, that's me telling ProStitcher, hey, I want you to stitch this design here on my quilt top. And I am literally taking let me move back to ProStitcher here. There we go. I'm literally taking my machine needle and I'm putting it somewhere on my quilt top, plotting my first area point, which I did right here. And then I'm going to take it down as far as I can and plot another point. And then I can manually enter the height of my quilt top. And I'll show you how to do that later. But that's me telling ProStitcher, stitch the design out here on my quilt top. If you remember geometry class, hate to take you back to any math nightmare stories, but if you had geometry in high school, that's what ProStitcher is. It's a plotting program. Just like you had the X and the Y axis on your graph, that's what this is. And that's how ProStitcher knows geographically where to go to stitch things out, because you're plotting an area and telling ProStitcher, stitch it here. Okay, good question. Let me get back and see if we have any more questions. I think Roberta had a question. Should we have the same version on our laptop as we do on our tablet? Yeah, I recommend that you do that, Roberta. There is the rare chance that if you are running a newer version on your laptop, and let's say you create your design and you save it to a flash drive and you bring it over to your machine and load it, that there could be, and you're running an older version on your machine, there could be some backwards incompatibility. I have had it happen exactly one time in 8 years. And it was quite a while ago. So I think the software developers try to take that into, consideration with ProStitcher about making sure that they have backwards and forwards compatibility with designs that are saved in newer versions being opened in older versions. But it's what we call in the computer world best practice. So I would use the same version on your laptop in simulation as you have on your machine. Where do you get a UPS? A UPS or uninterruptible power supply can be bought at any office supply store like Staples, Home Depot, or Office Depot, or at some of the big box membership stores like Costco. That's where I got mine. Sam's Club. So, read the article, look at the graph, decide what size your system requires for correct coverage and protection, and that's what you want to go after. I got mine at Costco. I think it still costs between $150 and $250. Cheap insurance. Can you unplug the surge strip when shutting down instead of pulling the plugs out of the strip? I don't recommend that, Kristen. I recommend you pull the power plugs from the surge strip. There are a few surge strips that have a little battery in them. The whole point of unplugging from the surge strip or the UPS is twofold. One is to protect your system from some surge or power dip that might happen when you're asleep. Also, you want to deprive your system of electricity. So you don't want it running off a backup battery. So the reason being is when you do that, it resets the BIOS and gets rid of any temporary startup files. And that's just a good thing. Again, that goes back to that best practice computer, best practice. That way, when you plug your system back in, it creates brand new, fresh, uncorrupted startup files. If you've ever had a problem with your system and it's doing weird things like channel locks won't work or something is weird, that could be due to a corrupted startup file. So that's why you'll always see me say, shut your system down in correct order, unplug those power cords from the electrical source for 5 to 6 minutes. That's called a power cycle. And that will reset, that'll get rid of any temporary startup files. And then when you plug them back in and you start back up, new ones are created and they should be fresh and uncorrupted. Good question. Do most UPSs offer insurance? The ones I've gotten do. So Wendy, check, read the label. Let me see. How to enlarge buttons and ribbons for vision. Rita, we can't do that. You can try to change the monitor aspect in your settings under settings display, but it's going to cut off your screen and it doesn't scroll. So I recommend, reader glasses if you need them. Okay. Thanks, Sandy, for answering that question. We have Sandra Daniels Rindlisbach on, who is one of my very good buddies and Handy Quilter National Educator. Thank you for answering that question. Let's see. Okay, so Gail, that's the wonderful thing about ProStitcher. She said she had some problems with Connect. They had to go back to version 537. Dealer Tech advises not to update. What do I think? I think it's entirely up to you. I have not had any problems with the ProStitcher Connect Beta 847 version. We ran it at Handy Quilter Academy. We had 60 machines running on it without any issues. So just know that if you enable your Wi-Fi, that you're going to have to keep your Windows updated. And if you've never done that, it can take a while. So spend some time getting Windows updated. If your tablet's running Windows 10, it will eventually offer Windows 11 update, which you can do. Our techs have said that's perfectly fine. So let Windows 11 install. Again, it takes a while. So set aside time to do that. And then periodically check for Windows updates every 2 weeks or so. They tend to push them out on Tuesdays. That's just kind of a Microsoft thing. Once you've updated Windows, I recommend that you put your tablet into airplane mode and shut the Wi-Fi off. And you can do that just by, pulling up the Windows toolbar, swiping up from the bottom of the screen. You pull up the Windows toolbar, and in the right corner, you'll see an airplane, and you'll also see the Wi-Fi icon. So you can turn them off right there. That will prevent Windows from sneaking around and looking for updates and trying to install them while you're using ProStitcher. That can cause freezing and crashing. It's supposed to have been fixed in this beta 847 version. I don't trust Windows. They're constantly updating. And so our coding is only as good as what we know Windows coding is. So Windows is a powerful thing. So if you just keep your tablet in airplane mode and shut the Wi-Fi off, then Windows can't intrude when you're using ProStitcher. I don't have a PC. I only have a MacBook. Heather, I wouldn't recommend trying to run ProStitcher using Parallels or Boot Camp. It has some problems. It may or may not work. I recommend getting inexpensive little PC laptop so you can practice in simulation on a PC. Okay. Hi, Linda. Thank you. Okay. We'll get to that about our view tabs. So can you use a bigger USB stick than the one that came with your machine? Yes, Carolyn, size does not matter. Don't recommend that you save designs to your flash drive. I would just use your flash drive as a taxi service. Plug it into your laptop, make a copy of your design, paste it onto your flash drive, bring it to your machine and load it. And I also do all my saving to my flash drive. I don't save to the tablet's hard drive. There's no reason to do it. If you ever sell your system, you've got a bunch of stuff on there you don't want to give to somebody else. That's your hard-earned money, and we're not really legally allowed to share designs anyway. You'd have to take them all off. So get into the practice of saving all of your work onto your D drive, your flash drive. So, okay. And if you update, Chris Jones is saying, if you update to the current version, you have no intention of ever connecting to Wi-Fi. There would be no reason to worry about Windows updates. Correct. Yes, Chris, if you don't enable the Wi-Fi, keep your tablet into airplane mode and turn off the Wi-Fi, you don't have to worry about Windows updates. That is absolutely correct. I know some people don't have Wi-Fi signal in their studios, so don't worry about the Windows updates. You don't need them then. You're going to keep everything turned off. You're not going to enable the Wi-Fi. You're going to use your flash drive to bring designs to your tablet and to update your ProStitcher when you want to do that. Okay. Angelia, how do I get simulation? I'll talk about that in just a second. Let me see. Let's see if I can share that and I can show you how to do that. Bear with me. Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to try to share my tabs. So bear with me. Windows. Okay, so hopefully you can see my ProStitcher screen here. I'm on ProStitcher.com. And in order to install ProStitcher onto your software, you're just going to go to Software, Software Updates. You have to sign in. Okay, so I'm going to go to Software Updates. And then you're going to scroll down to the PS Connect beta. That's where you get the beta version. And you should check to make sure your tablet is compatible. If you have an older tablet, say older than 7 or 8 years old, it might be too old to run the Connect version. And this is where you can find out. Assuming you have a newer machine, this is where you download the version right here. This is for Lite users. We don't need to worry about that. You would just download it here. And at the top of this page, this is how to install ProStitcher updates. And if you go to Purchase ProStitcher Premium, write that down. Scroll down here, you will see PS Simulation Installation Instructions. If you click on this link, it's going to launch. It's going to have you download the instructions in a PDF. I'm not going to download them. And that will walk you through how to install ProStitcher onto your laptop to use in simulation mode. Okay, let me put this down. Let me pull this back up. Bear with me. Okay. Let's stop sharing this. All right, let's go back to ProStitcher. Add it for you. ProStitcher. Okay, there we go. Okay, I know we've got a lot of questions. I don't want to ignore your questions, but I also want to work through it. So, Angelia, that is how you get simulation onto your laptop. Can you download favorites to the tablet? I'm not sure what favorites are, and I don't think you'd need to use them. Let's see. Okay, Diane, you weren't successful in trying to load ProStitcher Simulation on your laptop. I recommend that you open a ticket on ProStitcher.com, scroll down to the bottom of the screen, and there's a little link that says open a ticket, and submit your ticket, and they will reach out to you and walk you through that. Okay. To update 847, Roberta, you can update either way. If you have a current PS Connect version, and you've enabled your Wi-Fi, you can update directly through the Wi-Fi connection, or you can do it the old-fashioned way using a flash drive. What is the difference between Premium and Connect? Premium does not have a Wi-Fi connectivity option. It has a couple of bugs that were fixed in 847. The two I can think of is the nudge button will get stuck, and then you're nudging your design off into Nowheresville, which is very annoying. And also sometimes the channel locks will not function or work. So you have to reboot your system. That bug was also fixed. More designs, Wi-Fi connectability. So that's the difference. Ginny, that's not normal. You may be opening it incorrectly. So it sounds like you're trying to actually open the executable file, the install file, instead of the executable file. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to make sure. I think I've covered most of them. Guys, let me go ahead and continue on with ProStitcher so we can see some fun things. So let me go ahead and get ProStitcher up here. All righty. So we've talked about The left sidebar, which is static. These are your assignable buttons. These are the 10 right here. These are your 4 workspace buttons. Only one can be on at a time. This is the workspace. I've got an area up and I've got a design up. My tabs are across the top. And each tab has its own toolbar ribbon and its own, let's see, if I go to modify, for example, and I go to rotate, here's where modify, rotate tools live, over in the right sidebar. And that's true for every tool you're using. They'll have their own sets of tools in their right sidebar. See how that changes with every tool I'm clicking on in the modify tab? This is changing. All right. Now I want to talk a little bit about here. We haven't covered these, just so you know what they are. This looks like a keyboard, and indeed it is. It's your on-screen keyboard, or OSK, and it will allow you to type something in if you need to, like for Windows updates. This is helpful. If for some reason you need to type something, you're on ProStitcher.com. This is your keyboard to do it. This is your Wi-Fi icon, and the Wi-Fi icon will, this shows that I have Wi-Fi connectability. You may see it grayed out and a line across it. That means your Wi-Fi is disabled. ProStitcher has disabled it, and that should happen when you go to the ProStitcher tab and you touch Run. This should disable for you. Windows somehow was working around it, and that's why they pushed out this newer version of PS Connect, is to try to clamp down on Windows. But again, if you have your tablet in airplane mode and the Wi-Fi shut off, this icon will be gray with a diagonal line through it. If you see this Wi-Fi icon grayed out with a question mark, it's telling you it's not connected at all. It's never been connected to your Wi-Fi. And for some of you who have no Wi-Fi in your studio or have no intentions of connecting it, that's what it will look like for you. And that would be normal. This is a very important tool. This is one of your best friends in ProStitcher. This is our built-in help. You click it once to turn it on, and then you can touch anywhere on the screen to get detailed help for that area or button. So if I want to know what something is, like if I click on my workspace, it says this is your work area. It's the ProStitcher workspace, and then it tells you what it is and what can be on here. Or I could click on a tool, and it's going to tell me what baseline is. Or I could click on record, or I can click on move. When you're done, and I'll tell you, when I installed this on my laptop in simulation, I probably spent an hour or two in help going through all the tabs to find out what each one meant. And it was a great learning experience. When you're done, all you have to do is click on it again to turn it off. Now, motor icons. There are some motor icons, and let me see if I can get back to my PowerPoint presentation for you and show you what the motor icons are. Okay, here are your Wi-Fi icons. We talked about that. This means it's on and connected. This is what you'll see when you're in the ProStitcher tab and you touch Run. You should see the Wi-Fi gets disconnected. And if you've never connected your Wi-Fi, it will look like this with a blue question mark. Okay, motor icons. So these are your typical motor icons that you might see when you're using ProStitcher. If it's unlocked, you can move your machine, and it will look just like a lock that's unlocked. If your motor icons are locked, and I don't think it turns blue anymore, I think it stays red, but if it's locked, you will find that you cannot move your machine, and that's for a reason. It's usually when you're in stitching mode and you've touched ProStitcher and you're stitching, or you've paused it, it's going to be locked, and it needs to stay locked so you stay on your stitching path. This will show if you have your channel locks are on, so you've got your motors locked in the vertical position or the horizontal position. If you are both locked, this is the lock button that you'd see. Again, that's when you're stitching. It's going to be locked. ProStitcher's moving your machine, not you. And you see this S, and you saw that on my screen. That means you're in simulation mode. So your crosshairs will be green, and you'll have a big S superimposed on your motor icon. And then this last one is a lightning bolt. We call it lightning bolt of death. It means you've had a motor error, and you can click on the icon to try to reconnect your motors, or you can go to the settings tab and do it through settings to try to reconnect your motors. And if that doesn't work, then you're going to have to do a system reboot. So that's that. Let's go back to, okay, our ProStitcher tab. So I've covered our icons here. Now, let's do a quick tab overview. So we've got our file tab, and on the file tab, we've got these tools here, and this is how we would, I'm going to clear this. This is how we would open a design. So if we go to File, Design, you notice in this drop-down box, it's going to give you some options. I can go to Open and go browse to a folder, or maybe there was a design I used yesterday that I want to reopen. It will list like the last, I don't know, about 15 designs in order, newest to oldest. So if I go to Open and I want to open a design, I would go to my Designs folder, which is on my C drive. And let's say I wanted to open a continuous line design, and you can see where I am because it's green. See how Designs is green? 1PS Designs folder is green, and the continuous line subfolder is green. And I know that by looking at my file path. This is where I am. And I can click on any one of these subfolders, or I can go down and click on some of our featured designer folders. I've created some folders within mine, so that's why you see some extra ones that you may not have. And I can open a design from any of these. So I would touch it to select it and click open, or I can double tap it with my finger or double click on it and it will open it. Now, I want you to notice something. When you go to Design Open, ProStitcher is looking for these file extensions. If you're saying to yourself, I saved my workspace yesterday and it's not here, where I saved it, and I saved it here. I saved it. I was really good, and I was a good girl, and I browsed to my workspace. It's not in here. There's nothing in here. Well, that's because you've gone to File, Design, Open, and ProStitcher is only looking for files with these extensions. Workspace doesn't have this extension. If you want to open a workspace, you need to go to File, Workspace, Open, and it is going to look for HQW files. And so if I go here, here's a whole bunch of them, and they all have this file extension HQW. So just beware, aware of where you're and what you're trying to open, and use the correct pathway. File Design will open a design, and it's going to see HQF, HQV, or QLI files. Those are the three file types that ProStitcher can read and open. If you've saved a workspace, then you're going to have to go to File, Workspace, Open. And again, same thing. It shows about the last 10 to 15 workspaces that you've either had on your workspace or saved. Okay. Same thing with area. If you want to open an area, if you have 537 or newer installed, we have this wonderful area tab, and it's here under C, Areas. It's alphabetical. It's on the C drive of your tablet. and it's under areas, and we have all these wonderful built-in areas, and we got them with version 537. So updating can be very beneficial. You can get all kinds of new things. You get bug fixes, new tools, new functions, new designs sometimes. And in 537, we got an entire area library. So if you want to save something, you can do, and I suggest that you do this always when you're right before you press the run button, you should have baselined and saved. So you can do a file, save, selected will save what's selected on your screen. Right now, I just have one design. It's selected because it's black. So it's going to save this design, and then I need to tell it where I want to save it. I recommend if you're working on something and you want to save an edited design, I would collapse your C drive so you can get to your D drive, which is your flash drive, select it, and then you can either save it directly to the D drive, to the root drive, or if you want, you can create a folder. See all the folders I have here? So if I want to create a new folder, I can just go to this little icon and click plus, and we can call it demo folder. And I'll create it. It's thinking. And then it'll open it to the demo folder. And then I can save this design. And I recommend that you give it a new name and save. Okay. Close will give you an option to close what's selected or your entire workspace. So if I choose close selected, it'll close whatever is the selected item on my workspace, which was my design. I'm going to undo that. Clear all does exactly that. It clears everything off your workspace, all the designs, and if you have an area. And then update is exactly what it sounds like. If you click update, it's going to go to your D drive, and it's going to look for your update files, and it's going to ask you, okay, what do you want to update? And this is how you update via flash drive. You would put your update files on your flash drive, plug it in. When you click update, ProStitcher knows to look for the D drive, and it will look for the executable files. Okay. And then we talked about file shutdown. Shutdown will shut everything down, the program in your tablet, which is the correct path on your tablet. If you're using ProStitcher on your laptop in simulation, you'd want to pick exit to Windows. That'll just shut the ProStitcher software down, but not your entire laptop. Okay, so that's it for your file tab. Edit tab, pretty simple. Every once in a while, you'll hear people talk about clearing your edit history. You only really need to do that if you're doing custom work and you've done a ton of edits. If I'm doing a custom quilt, I tend to clear my edit history after I stitch that first throat space, and then I've advanced to the next. Reason being, if you clear your edit history, you see all my edit steps here? That's what the undo arrow is looking for. It's looking for these edit steps to go back to the previous edit step, and then the next, and then the next. Or if I went back too far, same thing for my redo arrow, it will undo that last undo. If you clear your edit history, all these steps get cleared away, and you won't have anything to undo to until you make your next edit. So that's why if I'm doing a custom quilt, I wait until I advance, because I know I'm not going to probably use anything I've already stitched out in that first path. I'm kind of starting over again on a custom quilt with my next throat space section. Anytime you close out of ProStitcher, your edit history is automatically cleared. I get into arguments with people about this all the time. They say mine doesn't, and I will tell you it absolutely does. What you're mistaking is this. This is not your edit history. People will say, my edit history is still there, and they're looking at their design or their workspace. So that's not the same thing as edit history. Edit history is here. It shows you your modifications and your edits. not necessarily your design open or saving history or your workspace open and saving history, different things. So you really don't need to do it. If you're doing all over edge to edge work, unless you're using a lot of modifications, if you're nudging something in place, then yeah, maybe you might want to, but it's pretty rare. Okay, we've talked about undo and redo, and this is a good thing to point out. Do you see our quick access buttons here? These all live somewhere else in ProStitcher. That's why you're putting them here, is you don't want to try to hunt around and figure out, okay, what tab is, where's baseline? Where would I find baseline? I don't know where baseline is. Or where's my based button? They'll be in some tabs ribbon, toolbar ribbon. That's why it's so handy to have them here. You don't have to hunt around for them. And you can see here very clearly, here's where undo and redo live normally. We have them assigned here in the quick access because then they're always here, no matter what tab we're on or what tool we're using. Okay, so cut, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to cut your design out. Paste will paste it back in. Copy makes a copy of it so you can like paste a duplicate, and it's going to paste it right on top. You can't even see that I have two designs on the screen, because my designs are set to load start point to crosshairs. So it plopped that copy of the design directly on top of my first one. How do I know? If I go to the right sidebar Workspace tab, I have two designs. Okay, so let's say I don't want two designs. Here's the one I copied. Close. It's selected because it's green. Selected. Now I only have one. And I'm going to select it, turns black. Okay, back to the edit tab here, duplicate. I'm going to move my crosshair so you can see. If I click duplicate, that is a one-step copy paste. Just simpler. People ask, what is better to use, copy and paste or duplicate? Doesn't matter. I use duplicate because I'm lazy. It's one step. And then clear all is exactly what it sounds like. Clears everything. Very much like clear all here in your file tab. Okay, area tab. This is where we can make our areas, and we have 4 area options. We have rubber band area, which I almost never use. It's going to put an area around my design that's going to touch every outside edge of that design. Trying to think of why you would want to use rubber band. Nothing is coming to me because I literally never use it. There may be some custom quilting application where that's helpful. And my wonderful pals, Sandy and Linda, might pipe in on the comments. Linda's one of my ProStitcher mentors. She was one of my original teachers. Thank you, Linda, for bringing me to this place and time. She has probably twice as much experience in ProStitcher as I do. She might have used it more than I have. It's not a tool I use. And you'll find that's pretty common in software. There'll be a group of tools you use a lot. Some you don't use so much. That's normal. 2-corner area. This plots 2 corners, 2 points, but it will show up here and your point count is 4 because ProStitcher knows it's going to be a rectangular or square area. So it'll count all points for you. And that's the tool we use to create our all over edge to edge designs. So I would just I've got my simulate on, so I'm going to put my arrow here. Let's say I want to make my all over edge to edge quilt top, and my quilt top is 30. Let's see, it's 30 by 30. Okay. I would take my needle and I would put it about a 1/2 inch above my top edge of my quilt top and about an inch, inch and a half to the left. So it's kind of up there diagonally, 1/2 inch above the top edge, inch, inch and a half to the left, and I would plot my first point. Then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to move it towards me, so I'm closer to the belly bar, just so there's a space difference. And then I'm going to take it all the way over about an inch, inch and a half to the right of the right edge of my quilt top, and I'm going to plot my second point. So let's say that was 33 inches. Okay. And obviously my quilt top is 30 inches long. So I'm going to have to manually enter, and I'm going to add a few more inches to it because I don't want to run out of design at the bottom of my quilt top. I can always crop away any excess design I don't want to stitch out, but it's nice not to run out of design, let me tell you. Okay, so, and then I'm going to refresh again so we can see it. So now I have an area that's 33 inches wide and 36 inches tall. That's how we do a two-corner area. Multi-point, let me clear my area. So we've got our clear button here. For those of you using version 537, your clear button is in the toolbar ribbon. In the PS Connect versions, they moved it over here, so it will be consistent with your quilting space, which we'll talk about in a second. So multi-point is exactly that. It allows you to place multiple points. So this would be something you'd want to do with blocks and borders and sashing. And it just is exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to plot more than one point and know that, you know, sometimes our piecing may not be dead perfect. Your quilt top's a fluid thing. And it may look really even on your frame, and then you go to plot the points and it looks like this. And you think to yourself, oh my word, that looks horrible. But I'm looking at my quilt top and it looks perfectly square. Don't worry about it. We have tools to fix that. So let's say this is my sashing and I want to fill this in. So I can just do this and I can repeat it. I can fill it all in. Maybe we'll add one more. And maybe we'll try to skew it in using our border skew tool. Oh, look at that. And it will stitch out so perfectly. So that's multi-point area. I'm trying to show you some additional tools as we go for time's sake here, as we're running out of time. Okay, so area. Now, quilting space. This is, whoop, let's clear that. Let me get my... This is a wonderful tool. This is you being able to tell ProStitcher where it's safe to stitch in your throat space. I recommend using this tool when you're doing all over edge-to-edge work. So you would take your needle and you would take it all the way up to your top bar and out to your clamps and set the first space. Then you're going to take your needle and you're going to go all the way to your belly bar, touch it, and then move back a wee bit to your clamps and set your next quilting space. And it will tell ProStitch, it will tell you, it's just a visual aid in premium. It'll tell you, hey, this is where it's safe to stitch. If your design falls outside of this quilting space box, you're going to hit a bar. So I really recommend utilizing that tool, especially with all over edge to edge. And here's how you clear it. Ooh. All right, so we've covered everything there. I want to get to the Modify tab because this is where the magic happens in ProStitcher. So here's where Baseline lives. It lives on the Modify tab. It's one of the tools, but I've assigned it here because I want it at my fingertips no matter where I am in ProStitcher. So let's talk about the tools quickly. I'm going to go here, clear all, modify. Let's see, let's open a design. This guy. Okay, modify, rotate. And that's exactly what it'll do. It'll rotate this design, and we have some tools here to rotate it. We can rotate it 45 degrees. We can keep clicking. I can go back. I can also mirror this design, but if I'm going to use this as an all over edge to edge, I'm going to have to swap my start and end points because remember your start point has to be over here. So I can just do it, swap. Okay, or I could flip the design if I wanted my start and stop to be at the bottom. And I'm not going to get into 2-point rotation. That's a little more complicated, but you can also do a custom rotation, and you can put whatever you want in here. And then you can rotate it these teeny amounts. Okay, so that's rotate. And let me clear all. I'm going to open that design again, go back to modify. Okay, reposition. And let me put an area in here because I want to talk about two tools and what they do. Okay, now we have an area. So let's go back to modify, reposition. Reposition will reposition whatever design you have on the screen to your needle. And in this case, of course, it's your crosshairs. Remember, crosshairs on your screen represent the needle on your quilt top. So I have some options here. Again, in the reposition toolbar, I can reposition the design's start point to the needle, end point to the needle, center the design to the needle. Hey, there's the drag and drop button. That's where drag and drop lives. That's why you always want it to live here. That's another button you don't want to reassign. It should always live in your left sidebar in your quick access tool. Top left, bottom left. So, and this is, you'll use these nudge arrows all the time. These are very, very helpful. And you can click in here and you can put whatever nudge parameter you want to use to nudge it in bigger increments or smaller increments. And so, for example, if I wanted to move this design start point to my crosshairs, I just click start point. Let's undo that. Let's say I want to nudge this design a little bit. I'm going to make it bigger increments so you can see it. And I'm going to zoom in, draw a marquee box. There we go. Okay, and we're going to go back and I'm going to nudge this. And so I'm just going to click on this. Do you see how it's moving? Very helpful. And you can move it in any of these directions, diagonally on any of the diagonals, vertically or horizontally. Super helpful tool. Caveat. These, every time you click on nudge, you are sending a command to ProStitcher. And if you use a lot of nudges, that's a lot of commands. So once you have done all your edits, it's critical that you baseline. What is baseline? Everybody's going, what is baseline? Here it is in a nutshell. When you click on baseline, it tells ProStitcher to freeze all of those edits in place and literally will redigitize this design as though it were always digitized this way. So for example, let's say I don't want my start points up here. I really prefer them down here. And I click baseline. Do you see how it's now available? Because I've edited again. ProStitcher has now redigitized this design as though it were always digitized this way. It takes out the commands. It says, okay, this is a fresh, unaltered design, just as though the digitizer had always digitized it this way. Super important that you baseline your individual edge-to-edge design after you've made any edits. If you rotated it, if you've flipped it, if you've swapped start and end points, if you've resized it, you always want to baseline it, make it a fresh, new, unaltered design before you repeat it. I cannot tell you how critical that is. If you've ever done an edge-to-edge design, let's say you've resized your individual design element, you've repeated it, and you're stitching out, and then all of a sudden, ProStitcher loses its mind and starts to head to your belly bar for some weird reason, or starts to stitch a diagonal design off to nowhere. That's probably why. This is a critical baselining step. So basically anytime you've done a modification or an edit, baseline will become available. Click it. That will turn this design into a brand new, fresh, unaltered design, just as though we're always digitized this way. It's not a save function. Save is save. File, save, selected, or workspace. That's the save function. Baseline is baseline. And it's what will freeze any of your modifications or edits just as they are in place and redigitize the design for you. Okay, so we've talked about reposition, resize, very straightforward. It literally will resize your design, and you have a couple of options. You can do resize just the width or just the height, or if you want to resize this and pick one of the aspects but have the other aspect resize proportionally, turn your lock button on. And let's say this is going to be too dense for us and we want to resize it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to select height. Doesn't matter which aspect you pick, really, whatever is the easiest for you. I recommend height because that keeps you aware of what your limitations are for an all over edge to edge height. Rule of thumb, take your throat space of your machine, subtract 6 inches from it, and that should be the maximum design height. So if you have an Amara 20 and you subtract 6 inches for it, you would not want to make this design any taller than 14 inches. And that will resize it. And you can see up here, it says 14 with 14 in height. And if I look at the design tab, here it is here. I have modified it, so I need to baseline it. And now I could repeat it if I wanted. Okay, so that's resize. Crop. Crop will crop a design from either inside an area or outside an area, or if we move the start or stop points, it'll crop away whatever is on the other side of the start or the end point. So let's go to repeat and I'll show you how crop works. So I've resized my design. Let's go ahead. I'm going to refresh my screen and let's fill it. And I'm going to add one more horizontal repeat. So now I'm sure that I'm going to get stitches all the way out to the edges of my quilt top. And then okay, there. Now my entire quilt top is going to have stitches because remember, I created an area that's going outside into my batting. I know I'm going to have full coverage. I'm happy with this. And here's where we need to do another baseline step. This is critical. Never skip this step. Now I can go back to my modify crop and I can crop everything that is outside of my area. So if I pick outside, it crops away all that excess design, but you see all my start and stop points? I don't want those. So I'm going to close my edges by clicking on edges. And let me hide my area for a hot second. There you go. All the edges are connected now. They've connected all the start and stop points. I don't really care about those straight lines because remember, they're stitching out into the batting. I'm happy with how this looks. So before I go to ProStitcher Quilt, I need to baseline. And then I need to do a file. And let me turn my area back on. File, save. And for edge to edge, I just pick selected. You don't need to pick your whole workspace. If I were to reopen this, say tomorrow, let's say I got my first row done, I have to close down, start the next day. I'm not going to use that area again. It's already done its job. So I'm going to pick selected. I'm going to collapse my C drive because I don't save things to my C drive. I save things to my flash drive. And I'm going to pick my folder. And then it's already renamed itself because it put the word repeat in front. So this says this is a repeated clover edge to edge. And you can be clever if you want. You can create folders for your customers. If you want to be really smart, you could put the date you did it because you might have a customer say, hey, I really want to use that design that we used last August. You know, it kind of has this pretty swirly thing. It looks like it has little clovers on it, but it was back in August. You can find it by putting a little date in front of it into your customers folder. Easy to find a design that maybe you used for your customers. So little file tip there. Okay. That's crop. Align. So this tool, if you do not have an area created, Align will not be available. Align works with an area. It will align a design to an area. So let me do this. Let's just close my design and let's open just the single design element. I'm just going to stick it in the middle of my area, go back to modify and align, take it out of the area. And these are your options here. Again, your right sidebar, align tool will show you all the tools. So if I click center, it's going to align this design to the center of my area. Let's say I wanted it up in this corner. I would pick horizontal left, vertical top. And we also have some stretches. This would probably not be appropriate, but if we wanted to stretch it, this would look really weird. But this, if you use stretch all directions, it's going to stretch the design to fit in. Let's undo that. Okay, so it's not letting me undo. There we go. Okay, so if I wanted to stretch it just horizontally, I could, or vertically. So that is align. Skew is a great tool. Let me go ahead and I'm going to change my area size and show you how skew works. Okay, so let's zoom in. Okay, let's say I want to skew this design. I just want to make this design in my block. I like this design. I know it's an edge to edge, but it'd be pretty in my open block. So if I go to modify, I can use our skew tool. This is one of my very favorite tools in ProStitcher. And we have two different skews. We have skew and border skew. Skew is for a very simple, no more than 4 points, square rectangular area. Border skew is exactly what it sounds like. If you've got a multi-point area, long border, it's kind of wiggly, that would be the preferred tool. Triangle skew, we'll talk about that in a sec. So if I click skew, it's going to skew this in beautifully. Very powerful, very complicated coding. Does a really great job most of the time. If you have an area that's a weird shape, has a lot of concave sides, skew is going to have a very hard time negotiating that command. You're going to be better off using modify, resize, and resize your different aspects, horizontal and vertically separately. Let me show you how triangle skew works. So I'm going to create a triangular shaped area by using multi-point, and I'm only going to place 3 points. Remember, areas are always closed objects. See how it's closed? You do not need to come back and put your last area point on top of your first one to close it. That's not necessary, and it's actually going to confuse ProStitcher. That is a bad habit. Don't do it. It's not needed. Just place your last point where it is. It's going to stay closed, but don't put it on top of your first point ever. So you need to have a 3-point area, and then I can go in and open a triangle design. Okay. And it needs to be in the same aspect as your area, which this one is. If it weren't, I would go to modify, rotate, and I would rotate it. So it matches the aspect of your area. Now we can go to skew. Notice how triangle skew is now available. It's available because I have a 3-point area. If this area were more than 3 points, this would be grayed out. So I can click on triangle skew, baseline it, save it, stitch it out. I've showed you swap. That just swaps the start and end points. We've talked about repeat already. We've covered that. ProStitcher is where we can do quite a few things here. Obviously, the main one that it will default to is quilt, because it's assuming if you're going to ProStitcher, you want to quilt out what's on your screen. And you would click run, and you're going to get your verify settings here. Make sure everything is set as you like. If it's not, press cancel. And go to your settings and make sure you have your speed set how you want it. I would recommend kind of something like, this is about 60. This is a good starting off place for most people, and a little over half of your acceleration and speed. Speed is your total speed, and it's going to be dictated a bit by the design. So you might want to go fast, but the design is complicated. ProStitcher knows to slow down when it needs to slow down. Acceleration is the speed into and out of points and corners, and it will help you achieve sharper points and corners. Recommended to have it set a little over half of your speed. If you have it lower than that, it might work okay. On some of the older machines like Fusions and Avantes, you may notice some lurching, jerking. If you see that, increase your acceleration so it's just over half. You've crossed that halfway mark of your speed, and that lurching and jerking should subside. Auto jump sets how far you want your jump stitches to be automatically. So ProStitcher will automatically move if it's 3 inches or less. I normally have this set at 0. I don't want ProStitcher automatically moving to anything. So you can click in here and type 0. Or if you prefer, you can go to the defaults, and it gives you default enters for both your nudge and your auto jump. So that way, when I close down ProStitcher and I reopen, if I go back to my auto jump, it's always going to be at 0. If I leave the defaults, I think the default, I don't remember what it is for nudge. I think the auto jump default is 6 inches. That's way too big for me. That's just my personal preference. You can pick what you like. But if you change it in defaults here, when you reopen it, these will stay the same, how you have them set. In the modify, reposition, nudge, custom box, as well as your auto jump, it will stay 0 if you set it 0 here. Stitches per inch, exactly what it sounds like. And remember, these are stitches per inch, not stitch length. So the bigger the number, the smaller the stitch length, because it's more stitches in an inch. This is where you can also set up your baste, and you can plus or minus your baste. Tie-offs. These are your tie-offs, and I usually have mine set to 6, and I usually have the distance set to 0.25. And for some reason, in this version, they are not staying. I'll have to check on my tablet and see if these are changing. But this is usually how I have them set, 6 to 7. I have them set on my start and end. I like micros. I don't like the tack stitch. It makes a big lump, and I'm not a fan of that. But again, your personal preference. Do not make the distance any smaller than 0.025. If you do, ProStitcher has a very hard time calculating that, and it may not do all of your tie-off numbers. So don't go below 0.025. Pull-ups, this should always be on. You always want to have your pull-ups on. That's pretty much non-negotiable, and that lets ProStitcher do the down and up pull-up. If you have pull-up auto on, that moves your machine after it does a pull-up stitch off to the right side a couple of inches. It makes it easier for you to reach. Again, personal preference here. This is non-negotiable. This is on at all times. I cannot think of any time you would ever want this turned off. Pause, delay. Again, this is personal preference. You can have it on or not. I'm a nurse. I recommend you keep it on. I don't like people who have it turned off. This is where your machine will pause after it does your tie-off stitches so you can clip your threads. Some people like to get tricky, turn it off. It does the tie-off stitches and keeps on going. And then you get to play needle chicken, trying to grab your threads and trim them while the machine is stitching. That's a good way to put the needle through your finger. If you're not afraid of pain, turn it off. Otherwise, turn it on and decide if you want it. I usually have it set to 2 inches. That works pretty well for me. Stitch Stats is a fabulous tool. It will tell you how many stitches are in your design, how long it's going to take, and how many inches of thread. Extremely helpful for edge to edge. Just want to warn you, there is a little bug still in this. If you want to look at your stitch stats, which are all over edge to edge, do 2 things. Make sure you have baseline and saved your design, and I recommend that you drop your needle into your row's first start point, because sometimes executing stitch stats will cause ProStitcher to crash. If you have your needle drop down into row 1 start point, very easy to reposition your design when you reopen it. And then advanced, this is where we have some of our settings here. We have general settings here. This is where you can turn simulation on and off. If for some reason you boot up your tablet and you have green crosshairs, this is where you go to turn simulation off. It happens sometimes. So you go to settings, advanced, general, turn off simulation. It will prompt you to reboot ProStitcher. You just go to File, Shut Down, Reboot, and that will just reboot your tablet. This is also a wonderful tool we have, load start point at crosshairs or load point to point. We have 2 options to load designs when we open them to the workspace. So if you pick load point to point, you can open designs one after the other and they will connect to each other. Super nice little way to load. And again, that's in settings, advanced. If you need to reconnect your motors, if you get a motor crash and clicking on the lightning bolt here doesn't reconnect, then you go to settings, advanced, communications, and click reconnect machine. Okay, I am going to stop here because we have covered pretty much most of the stuff here. Oh, one thing I forgot to review. This is what you see in ProStitcher, and I recommend y'all stop and jot these down. This is what I like to keep on in my view tab. This is sort of optional. These are my rulers. If I turn them off, you can see the rulers go away, but I like my rulers. It tells me kind of where I am. I never turn my grid on unless I'm doing custom work. You absolutely do not need it for any reason. With edge-to-edge design, it's not going to help you position anything. It's your needle on your quilt top and your area that will help you position an edge-to-edge design on your quilt top. And it just creates so much background noise. If you have an all-over edge-to-edge design up, it's really hard to see. It's hard to see your start and stop points. It's really hard to see your long dash jumps. So I just don't recommend keeping grid on when you're doing all over edge-to-edge work. I definitely have my scroll bars on. That's my scroll bars. That's what this is. Transparency, if I turn that on and I scroll up, see how you can see the design up here? Again, personal preference, not mandatory. Obviously, you want your area on. You obviously want your design on. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody say, open a design and I can't see it. And you can see they have the design open. It says so up here, but they have turned design off in the view tab. You don't need to have a bounds box. It'll put a purple line around your design. I don't keep that on. I use it on occasion. Same thing with rubber band. You definitely want your jumps on and you want your start end on. Tools here are if you have Designer or Art and Stitch installed, it will show. PS Patterns, this is where you get to connect to ProStitcher. You can download updates. You can go to your designs. You have to sign in. I'm not going to do it right now. This is built-in learning. We've talked about this. If you want to know what version of ProStitcher you have, if you go to the information tab and click about, it's going to tell you you have version 847 installed or whatever version you have. All right, I've literally covered everything, a complete overview. So let me come back to my peeps here. All right. We're at the end of our time, but I'm willing to go over a little bit. Let's answer questions. Where do you turn off air stitch? Oh, such a good question. Let me show you where that is. Hang on a sec. Let me get ProStitcher back up. Okay. ProStitcher quilt. Oop, turn off base. Quilt. Here's your stitch button. If it's green, ProStitcher is going to stitch. If you turn it off, ProStitcher will air stitch for you. And then you can run it, and it's going to, I'm going to pause it and cancel. There you go. It'll air stitch for you. Let's go back to ProStitcher quilt and turn my stitch button back on. So you can air stitch for a while, and then if it's working good, you can go ahead and cancel, and then it will take you back to your start point. Turn stitch on, and you can stitch. Okay, let's see here. Questions. I'll be watching this a few times. Great info. Thanks, Linda. Great. Okay, so we've got air stitch. If setting up a multi-point, okay, I'm reading Lisa Carrazas. If setting up a multi-point area and the last length before the starting point isn't level, is it okay to add multi-points on the way to the start point? So if you're creating a multi-point area, just create your multi-point area. It's going to be what it is on your quilt top. It may look a little wobbly on your screen, but when you look down at your quilt top, you think, that looks so square. Don't worry about it. That's the beauty of creating the area. If it's a little wobbly, skew will take care of it usually, and it will skew it in and it will stitch it beautifully. You'll really notice it on long borders and sashings, and you'll think, holy moly, that looks so crooked. But when you skew it in and stitch it out, it looks dead perfect. So that's the beauty of the skew tool. How do you get the design to restart when advancing the quilt? You touch resume, Loanne. That is, again, the beauty of creating the all over edge to edge design and using drag and drop and the resume command. The resume command, when it says resume, that's you telling ProStitcher, please resume stitching at the next row's start point. So that's how that works. Let me see if we have any more that I can answer for you. I will also try to answer some of these in the comment section for you. Reviewing drag and drop. That is really hard to do, Joyce, in simulation, just so you know. But I will try to do a video if I can on my YouTube channel, which is at Hoosier Quilt, Coast Quilt Co. I'll try to do a little drag and drop, but I would recommend that you go to ProStitcher.com, go to the Learn tab, ProStitcher Premium Education, and review it there. Okay. And some of the things to remember, there's a lot of extra education out there. Be sure you're on the ProStitcher Quilters Facebook group, ProStitcher Handy Quilter Community Facebook group, ProStitcher.com. In the Learn section, we've got 35 videos on ProStitcher Premium. Also, ProStitcher's YouTube channel and Handy Quilter's YouTube channel. There's over 1,000 videos on Handy Quilter's YouTube channel and about 45 videos on the ProStitcher YouTube channel. Take advantage of going to Handy Quilter Learn events. Search for events in your area. Go to quilt shows, Road to California, and American, let's see here, the American Quilter Society show, I believe in Grand Rapids, also has some ProStitcher classes that Christina is teaching, Christina Whitney. She's teaching at Road to California in January, out in Ontario, California, and then the AQS, American Quilter Society Grand Rapids show. She's also teaching ProStitcher classes there. So video on borders. Lisa, there is the most brilliant video on borders on ProStitcher's ProStitcher Premium channel, and it's called Borders and Corners. It is exactly how I do my borders and corners, and it walks you through exactly what you're wanting. So be sure that you watch that video. I mean, I can do a video, but my gosh, it literally is one of the very best videos I've ever seen. It's exactly how I do them if I have a border and a corner. Susan, you're having issues with start and pull-ups and tie-offs being tie-off ones, you know. The tie-off issue, yes, there was a little tie-off issue. Most of it's been fixed in 847. Again, that distance cannot be shorter than 0.025. If you have a smaller number than that, increase it to 0.025 for your tie-off distance, and that should fix it. Maggie air stitch, just to check to see how something's stitching out on your quilt top, if it's where it's stitching where you think it's supposed to. Sometimes you can air stitch, and that gives you an idea. And if you're saying, okay, the needle is traveling over where I expect it to stitch, I'm good. Cancel it, turn stitch back on, and away you go. When you should have 7 H, you use 3 rows. I don't do that. KL Wilson, I never use just 3 rows I always do my entire area. I don't know why, honestly, I don't know why anybody would want to just use 3 rows. I did a video on how to crop away the bottom of an edge-to-edge design. When you have excess design at the bottom you don't want to stitch out, that's on my YouTube channel, at Hoosier Quilt, Coast Quilt Co. So you can see that. It's just much easier and simpler to create an all-over edge-to-edge than trying to repeat 3 rows and use repositioned start point. I think that's a big pain personally. That's my personal preference. It's not that you can't do it. It's just that's my preference. All right. I think I've covered most everything. Okay. Something really quilt, drag and drop. Christy Strauss-Wagner. Okay, do me a favor, post your question in the ProStitcher Quilters Facebook group and tag me. I'm going to give you steps on how to do that. Okay. I'm just trying to go. Phoebe had a question. Stitching to the right, edge of toe. Yes. After stitching to the right of an edge to edge and you've tied off and you got your long jump pause, you can advance your quilt using drag and drop, and then all you need to do is bring your machine head over to the left side, somewhat close to the next row's start point, and touch resume. You don't need to do anything else. That resume command is a powerful command. It tells ProStitcher, please resume stitching at the next row's start point. Love that. That's why I use this all over design. Okay. I can't see folders. I'm so sorry. How do you save? It didn't show you. I will try to do that. I'll do a little video on how to save designs and how to save workspaces. That'll be on my YouTube channel. I'm sorry it didn't show that, guys. All right, we are done, guys. And if you have any other questions, you can put them in the ProStitcher YouTube video, and I will try to get to them and answer them. And if you have other questions about how to do certain things, you can post it on the ProStitcher Quilters Facebook page. Tag me at Hoosier Quilt, or at Patricia Fraser Sliney. Make sure it's a hyperlink so I'm truly tagged, and I will answer your question. Lisa, Diane, you do not need to move the start point. That's why it says resume and not run. Thank you, Linda. All right, guys. Thanks. You've been great. I can't believe we did this with so many people. Holy moly. You are all very welcome. My pleasure. Again, if you have questions, post them on ProStitcher Quilters Facebook page. Tag me. I'm there. I do social media support for Handy Quilter. It's one of my jobs as a national educator, and I will try to get to all your questions and answer them for you. Love you guys.